The views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management. Welcome to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. Whether you feel that you don't have enough money to start investing or are under the preconceived notion that investing is only for the wealthy, Magnus and his expert guests are here to help you. Now here is your host, Magnus Carter.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. You are on with Magnus Carter of the Making More Money for You show. Thank you for tuning in. Last week, we actually took a detour a little bit on some yesteryear things of cars in general. We covered a lot of topics, and there's so much to talk about with cars. We tried to get as much in as we could. I had my special guest, CJ Young of CJ Young Upholstery with me. And we just talked about how investing in cars and classic cars can actually add to your portfolio and have some fun with it too while you still own it. And which that brings me till today. I have a very special guest with me today. He has been on the radio in the media stream for a very long time now. Also has a degree in communications. You might have seen them on some of his other shows, and he's actually royalty if you think about it, because he's one of the first pioneers in the podcasting realm. I have Brasco here from King of Podcasts and Cannabis Radio on WMRFM. Welcome to the show, Brasco.
Thanks for having me, Magnus. Thanks for really making time to come out. Normally I do all the hosting myself, but I'm glad to be on the other side of the microphone. Thank you again.
Oh, you're very welcome. Before I really got my radio show and I got my start and, my traction here, I was actually on Brasco's show promoting my book, Decrypting Cryptocurrency. And we had a wonderful, wonderful conversation about cryptocurrency, the state that we're in right now, where it came from, where I see it going. Brasco actually took me almost for a couple of loops there, because you brought up some things that I didn't remember writing from articles and things of past. So thank you, Brasco, for doing your research on that. That really kept the conversation moving. And
it makes a lot of help when I can retain through an audiobook and I just can just listen back. And because the other part was just the intuition I just had so much interest in the subject. I wish it was doing better for me now, because crypto is not doing good for some people out there. But like, I see my portfolio and I'm disappointed, but I know that's all going to come back. It's part of a bigger picture because there's an alignment to everything else. But for me, it was learning, because I wouldn't have stayed where I'm at in what I'm doing in my investment if I didn't talk to you about it.
Oh,
and the other part too is I want my listeners to know the same thing. It's never me being entrenched like an expert in terms of a lot of different things when I talk on cannabis or if I talk on tech or anything else. For me, it's a matter of I want to know what the listeners want to know. So I think I just want to ask the right questions.
That's exactly one of the things that this show actually helps with, is getting the information out to the listeners and let them make the choice what they want to do with it. It's the first thing that you need to have is good understanding of it. And
yeah.
when we did the books and when we had our conversation, and even when you did your research before, it's taking all that information. How can I apply it in my life and my situation? Which brings us a lot to today's topic is it's part of our lives. It's everywhere we look. It's, on billboards, it's on our phones, it's on TV, it's in commercials. We're going to talk about social media and how social media, impacts our life. We're going to talk about those impacts, where it came from, how we can actually make money using social media or digital media as a different form of media, because we graduated from the old smoke signals and papers and pens and carrier pigeons. Now it's everywhere and at the speed of light. So Brasco, how do you deal with all this? How was your take on it when it first came out?
Well, for me, social media, we got very much adopted into it 2006, 2007. When it comes to what I was doing with the network, all we had was what WMR.FM was webmasterradio.fm. And in 2006, we started branching out into a lot of different programming because we saw the change in technology. When it came to mobile, we launched our mobile show, which has been on ever since mobile press. That show was our first show entrenched into social media. Neil Patel, who's a pretty good sized name now in the space of digital marketing, internet marketing. He's a huge name now, but he started off with us. He was in our chat room back in 2005, 2006, following along with what we were doing. The likes of Jeremy Shoemaker or Shoe Money, that's done a lot of work as well, just in the same vein of just real entrepreneurs and just adopting in the new fields. For us, it was a matter of, we saw it as a marketing tool when we didn't have to advertise, because we always want to find a way. It was always, first of all, just to cross promote whether the brands. But if we can get ourselves with social media, we knew immediately that it was the new ad component, that traditional brick and mortar advertising or just the paid advertising we're going through with pay-per-click, it was going to have competition. And so from the business side, we saw that. And on the social media side, for people, just in society, culture, and just everyday personal use, it was just form of communication, a way that people couldn't communicate or just bond or, come up with on their own, personal, fraternity, sorority, just clubs, organizations, where you could just add people from everywhere instead of just having that local component.
Yeah, it's not local anymore. We are global. Some small, as long as there's an internet connection or a network connection at all, man, you can touch lives all over the place. And I've definitely been seeing that and been part of that, and seeing how fast you can blow up and how fast you can deflate from that. As long as we see that all over Hollywood. Hollywood uses this now as a tool more than ever to promote themselves, because now everything, even when our shutdown happened, they were still trying to stay relevant by doing this and broadcasting from themselves instead of being on every television channel.
But Magnus, the problem is the celebrities didn't do a good job of it. In many cases, just look right now on celebrities that go on the TikTok now, and the way they try to adopt it. Some people are they're being forced by their publicity, by their agencies or whatever. You need to go and get yourself on social media. You need to interact and engage with your audience, but they're still going to be unapproachable, just like they always are.
Right.
And they've lost touch with reality because they've been so entrenched into Hollywood and what they're doing. That's why the influencers that are out there from various, look what you have on YouTube, look what you have on whatever platforms that people will just have. They just find a way to go and do what they can with some compartmentalized content, then branch themselves out. Oh, I want to do sponsorships. I want to do, endorsements. Let's do my own podcast. Let's do my own video series. Everybody branches out from there, but it's the real people that are becoming real stars. Celebrities can't do the same thing. And the pandemic exposed them when they didn't have the glamour. They didn't have the $1,000 of makeup or the dresses, or the guys couldn't look a certain way. And it would just dress scruffy like they would before that. They're not going to be red carpet ready. Nobody wants to see them on a Zoom camera, or they sound bad. They look bad. And just the way it was, that exposure really looked bad on them. And now you see influencers, when it comes to marketers and advertisers, they're looking at influencers as much or more. The only thing that celebrities have is the reliability that they're professionals. They'll show up on time. They'll get the job done. Otherwise, their engagement's just not there.
And you're right about that, because they were relying on so many other people that are part of their community to do a lot of the work for them. And then when it switched on to them, it's like, oh, I got to do work now, or I got to actually be on time for this, and I got to actually make sure I look well for this. But for everybody else out there, the other 98.5% out there, or more or less, whichever, they're doing it all from the start themselves, because they understand that it's like, okay, this isn't going to get done without me doing this. And that was one of the best things that I've seen. And there's some great content out there from people that started this.
But then you have to work the algorithms on each platform and figure out what's their mousetrap. How do you get to the cheese? I haven't figured it out. And that's the one thing I noticed for a lot of people when it comes to a show like this. I wish there was there was like an easy answer for everybody to say, okay, if you're doing TikTok videos, yeah, they tell you stick to a certain trend, do certain things. But sometimes I don't want to do that. I know that with my content, I'm not necessarily breaking the bank, but I'm still doing content that I want. And I'm not worried about the level of audience I get. I enjoy what I do. And I do a lot of content because I can do radio in front of one person or 1,000 people. But the other thing too is when I'm just doing content, let alone, I like to be a one-to-one. That I'm talking just to one person out there, and that's all it is. That's one. But then there's a difference on how you need to communicate on social media, where what you need to take what the celebrities do is the public persona, because what you put out there can hurt you or help you. And I always do the one thing with social media from the get-go was I was never going to put myself out there that personal or that intimate about myself. So the people that listen, and I don't judge anyone that want to talk about their mental issues or their problems that they have at home or anything like that, but I'm not going to air my dirty laundry or my own personal life out there. I have to keep a certain professional persona out there for everybody to know what's going on, because I'm not here to embarrass anyone else, not my family, not my companies, not my full-time commitments, nobody else. That's what social media has to be understood. You can inject yourself. You can, show some humanity, show some personality of yourself, but there has to be a limit.
Oh, I completely agree. There's definitely a line there. And you brought up some excellent points there that, good exposure and bad exposure. You remember what happened back in, I'm going to really date myself and maybe you as well, is when music from the radio transitioned to music television, when MTV actually played music and VH1 came out, and then the country music, followed suit with this. You remember how many artists dropped down and out of, we're talking, multi-million records sold artists here, because the medium that they were using to promote themselves destroyed them instead of send them up into the atmosphere.
Well, because the record companies didn't have control. MTV was their own programmer. And what MTV did was what rock radio did in the 70s and progressive radio, where you had disc jockeys that could just play whatever they wanted. And they exposed new music. With MTV, I mean, part of the music they put on was a lot of British music. There was another British wave of invasion of all these artists we never heard of. And all of a sudden, they just brought everything to the limelight. And that helped that channel greatly. Plus, they were already kind of ahead with new technology. And that's what also works here. Every time you have new technology, you come in and you have artists that are ambitious, they're young, and they're trying to make their way into the business. I mean, how many of those older artists were doing videos or things where they could have been put on MTV? I mean, you might have had Rod Stewart, you might have had Pat Benatar around, but Pat Benatar was a little new artist. I can't even think there was that many artists out there. But if you think of Adam Ant, you think of Duran, you think about it. It was all young upstart artists that were looking to start their careers, and they put these wild, crazy videos on. I watched it. I remember having my little cable box and having 36 channels on it and trying to go and change the channel. But I watched MTV a lot. 83, I got it on cable and blew me away. Loved it.
Yeah.
Radio needs another renaissance like that too, because what MTV did also was new music discovery.
Yes.
And that's what social media does now. If it comes to music, there's a way to lure people into product like any new technology. So for streaming, all those companies, whether it's television or radio, or sorry, for music or for TV or TV based, because you're streaming it on the internet, you need social media to be the gateway to get you there. But you're discovering a lot from social media. That's the great part I enjoy about it. That, and I do get exposed to other things that I probably would have never been aware of, or people would get me aware of things I would never be aware of.
Oh yeah, because we got so many more vantage points instead of what we're being told to listen to. That gave out quite a bit. That expanded everybody's horizon if you wanted to expand. If not, you can always go back to the old, I'm going to watch this television program, or I'm going to watch this guy on news, and that's going to be it. But for the rest of us in the world that wants to expand, and social media also gave us the opportunity to learn more from other experts and bring new fields in. And I can't help but it keeps popping in my head is the real first social media star was Justin Bieber. If you think about it, from this 11, what was he, 10 or 11 when he first started, and when the social media stuff just started out, he was on doing YouTube, doing videos and whatnot, and he just blew up, and he got his record deal, and I think he's still making music now, isn't he?
Absolutely. No, I mean, probably working on another album, but yeah, he's still putting out singles now. I mean, he's still putting out music and he's still being featured on a lot of records.
Mhm.
He's never stopped. His career's never stopped. It's just continued to go. He's one of the most popular pop music artists of the last decade or last 2 decades, for that matter.
Well, also on top of that, then we got the music competitions, because now it's like, okay, the TV companies were trying to get back hold of it instead of people going out and doing it on their own. So that's how American Idol started, because
Yeah.
it's like, okay, we're gonna put a show on and we're gonna show them how to do it right, but we're gonna still have control about it. We're gonna want the people on what we want, and and it's still going on for 20 some years plus now. And
But
it's
because they have nothing else to program.
that's true.
And the record companies, or they're just some people that want to have the chance to be on there. At least it gets some kind of ratings for this kind of like this reality competition. But there's not much else, because these big media companies don't want to spend money on scripted programming as much as they did. And they don't want to. And also the big corporations now, because of streaming, or what I call the digital disruption, you're seeing right now that, everything from HBO Max or Paramount Plus or Netflix or Hulu or Amazon, they're all going after new programming. But the other thing is, with these major companies that are held, that they are, they're back with terrestrial, large scale, conventional networks through NBC's, ABC, CBS's. Disney has their issues. Peacock with NBC. Their thing is, they're just going to go for sure things now. The movies that you have now for movie studios, they're only going to try to, for any new creative projects that come out that we can enjoy. It used to be we would need some big, tent pole blockbuster type of content to outweigh the cost, but they don't have that now, because everything's gone on the internet. There's been no answer. So everything that is new discovery, you're finding on the internet through whatever streaming service there is. And it's not even so much the mainstream services that are being, owned by big corporations. It's the Netflixes of the world. It's the Amazons, but Amazon's just trying to be a disruptor in general, to do their own thing,
Right,
and just shake things up.
well, they're doing that. And also Legion M decided, hey, we're gonna have the fans help do this. It's like, okay, we're gonna take them as investors, and we answer to them instead of a company. And being a stockholder with them gives me, they send out the cards, they send out emails. It's like, well, what would you like to see work, and have you seen these videos, and what did you think about them? They actually care, and they want to put the right content out. Kevin Smith is revolutionizing and disrupting a lot of stuff in Hollywood for that, and he's getting a lot of flack.
Yeah. There's no one who has a control of the market. So like for any of this internet based, I'm glad that we have such a nice wide open enterprise where there's just a big market of everybody.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, the corporations want to try to take their monopolies back.
Yes.
And I like the fact they can't get them. And as long as they keep making those same mistakes, corporations didn't do that before. Media corporations used to take chances on programming all the time. They don't now. And when it comes to social media, they don't get it either. They're just hiring some people sometimes that are getting it right and learning what they need to do.
You're right. And there's very few B or C. I can't remember the last time I see a B-rated horror movie come out, even on a streaming service. And I love them, the old slasher movies and whatnot with little actors and stuff. It kind of had somewhat of a plot, but it really wasn't necessary. They're diminishing. You still see some of the old classic ones out there, but even them, they're actually being taken off because of the rights and royalties they got to pay out, because they're not making the investment back by showing it.
No. Plus the other problem is now you have so much that's being just rehashed and recreated and just retooled for whatever there is. I mean, look at the movies we've had this year. I mean, but if it's not a cinematic universe or created into a cinematic universe, Top Gun just came out this past weekend as a recording. And you know what? $150 million box office this weekend over 4 days for a movie franchise that hasn't been on in over 30 years. And tells you a lot. But what they did do right was, they tweaked it for a younger audience. You have younger characters, but you still got Tom Cruise front and center. And they're going to have to keep doing that. Like Paramount Pictures themselves, they were struggling to find the next series that they could have, or just movies that could come out to make some money. Because after COVID, more or less, we're still dealing with right now. Only big blockbuster movies are making the real kind of money. They can't get older people to the theaters. They can't get women to the theaters as much. It's those demographics they're just trying to reach. Like you have to make the content for the advertisers to buy in, and the advertisers have no place to go and put their content. Like right now with social media, getting back to that, I feel bad for social media because, now these ad agencies, they're just nickel and diming all their advertising. There's no places where you just can put a large deal where you're guaranteed a big audience, and then you can just make the spend, make the buy, and then you get that product out, and a lot of people watch it. We don't have a Super Bowl every day.
No, we don't. And speaking of the Super Bowl commercials, it felt like they were last minute commercials. You remember every year you would wait for, it's like, oh, okay, what kind of commercials are you going to have this year and whatnot? And you see the commercials, it's like, oh, okay, it's crypto. Okay, it's this. They're not, like you're saying, they're not inventing anything. They're just throwing stuff out there, hoping it sticks to the wall and they make money on it. But the newer people that are coming out here that actually want to be able to make the money are putting the time and the effort into it. And like us here, we're doing it. We're making great content, and we have, the followers are still growing and still growing. You're going to get that negative feedback, but without that negative feedback, and we're actually taking that feedback in so we can change things. We're making strides to keep improving the content for the listener. So when the listeners get a chance, it's like, okay, now I can actually do this. Now this makes sense to us.
There's two things to take into account as well. When you're looking at advertising now, or just in social media in general, the short attention span is greater than ever before. Mm-hmm. Now you need to make sure you keep people's eyeballs on whatever you're doing. Plus, you only have a short time frame to get it done, which companies don't move that fast. Agencies don't move that fast. Trends come and go quickly. And also information comes in very fast. So if you're looking to take advantage of the information or just any kind of new announcements or any kind of trends, you have to jump on real time immediately. You can't wait on it.
Oh, I agree. Because I've been finding that out when, right after writing the books, both of the books and whatnot, and then trying to put the advertisements out there, the ads and whatnot, and people click on it just to see what it is. But after that, it's like, oh, okay, it's a book. It's not going to do me anything. And they don't read it. And I'm seeing a lot of that. But by doing the radio shows and actually being able to talk about it instead of just a picture of it and a couple sentences, it's like, oh, okay, I can actually use that. And I've been actually saying the exact word, pretty much the exact words on other shows or on the show here is exactly what the description is like. And then they buy it because they don't want to take the time to read it. It's like, oh, wait, he said that. And I'm like, I need to do that, budgeting. And, I do need to take accountability and all that stuff. Boom. Then it's a sale.
But you're going to have retained listeners that are going to want to listen to a book like yours. An audiobooks I listen to all the time because it's the same idea as listening to podcasts. It's just longer form. For me now, I'll tell you, like catching up on news, I can't watch news the way it is anymore. It's completely, and this is not with any political slant at all, apolitical altogether. I just can't watch it because it's not watchable anymore. The way they present it, it doesn't change. It doesn't evolve. The corporations want to do the same way they want to do it. And I'm not learning anything from it. They just basically want to just trap you in, give you nuggets of information, and then give you that 24-hour news cycle to say, okay, we'll come back to it. And then we come back to it. It's a follow-up on the same, whatever, a little bit more information that doesn't really tell you much. You don't get really informed at all. But through audiobooks, through large-scale magazine articles, comprehensive information, there's an audience for that. And I think you have to play both sides to where you make sure that whatever content you use, social media is your platform for short form content that's just going to make you blink, make you trigger, make you just tease you to get to look for the next thing that you have, the longer form content you have, whether it's a podcast, video show, or basically a podcast that's on video, because most people are doing that anyway. It's still the same thing. And then you have audiobooks, then you have, publications, whatever there is, your Substack, whatever you want. but you have to take that as a gateway through. That's what social media has to be. Or it's an advertising tool in the same way, gateway to your product or service.
Right. And everybody's in such a rush anymore. I've been finding out that it's in the background. So you're multitasking without really multitasking because you're playing it on instead of people listening to music now. Now it's the books. Now it's still the news and whatnot. But the news, when they designed the news, it was never supposed to be watch for a half hour and then stream it out for another hour. It's only supposed to be like 10 minutes of news and then repeat itself. And
how much of the news is actually that we actually care about? Because then the other part is half of the news is also just saying, well, this might hurt your kids. Need to know what it is. It's all shock and awe.
Yeah.
What the pandemic did was the COVID coverage was completely fear mongering to everybody. Like they could have handled it better. Always could have handled it better. And there's a distrust of the news. And it doesn't matter who it is. It's just there is.
Well, those are very valid points because they knew what they were doing with that. They knew what responses they wanted. They know what audience they were trying to capture and, and then spread it that way. And that's what people need to know now is when they're trying to get into the digital media realm is you need to do your customer research as well. You need to know what your target is, what you plan on using it for, how long, and you got to actually research how long you want to use, your snippet for. It's not 15 minutes of fave anymore. It's 30 seconds or nothing anymore. Yeah. If you're lucky, 30 seconds. Normally within 10, 15 seconds, like, okay, next one. And 5 of those seconds are if it's going to load fast enough.
The other thing I'll tell you, when I worked at local TV news in the newsroom, and I remember that 9:30 in the morning, I would sit in sometimes for their meetings just to go and see what their editorial schedule is, who's going to go report what, where they're going to go. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, they'll look at like 4 or 5 stories based on the resources they have. They'll have their live trucks. They'll do their stories, follow up here. Unless there's a breaking news story, they'll just have their certain cycle of news, reworked and rehashed every day to make sure, oh, well, you come back tomorrow, we'll talk to you about this. We'll show you this. And then it's the cycle. But it used to be if it bleeds, it leads. Now it's if it scares you, it'll compel you to stay.
Well, that's
not healthy.
No, not at all. And we're actually, wow, can you believe it? The first half of the show is already almost over. And we've talked about so much already about the movie industry, how people in the digital realm and stars royally missed their opportunity here and trying to gain footing back into our lives by trying to become more relevant. But we need to take a break, Brasco. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in because this conversation is definitely going to go further in the next the next section of the show. And we hope you come back and we'll be right after this.
All right, we're all clear.
Cool.
Excellent.
I like that. That was good.
Yeah, I could ramble for hours, man. You want to be in the radio business? You want to know how to talk? We can blab. Second bottle. How long is our break?
Like 10 more seconds, 15 seconds.
Yeah, like a minute, honestly, for just commercials and everything. So yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
It feels like 10 seconds, Gabe.
Yeah, it definitely feels like that. Yeah.
Well, because you also have to have retention on commercials. Most of our stuff is dynamically inserted down. Yeah, a minute, 2 minutes, maybe the most. Was always the one thing that everybody complained about when they ever reviewed our programming commercials because we put them in, but we got to do it.
Yeah, got to make the money. Keep the lights on.
I'll have to bring that up after the break.
Oh, absolutely. We'll definitely talk about that and commercials and all of it and how we'll focus more on how people can start getting into it.
Or just the kind of commercials to keep people engaged.
I like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, we can definitely
we can learn from our past.
Coming back in 15, you guys.
Oh my. See, like I said, 10 seconds.
When it comes to business, you'll find the experts here. Voice America Business Network.
You're listening to Making More Money for You with Magnus Carter. If you have any questions for Magnus or his guests, join us on the show at 866-472-5789. That's 866-472-5789. Now back to the show. Here is Magnus Carter.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Magnus Carter. We are on the Making More Money for You show on Voice America. I have royalty in the house right now of Brasco from King of Podcasts and Cannabis Radio. We just finished talking about the first segment of the show where we talked about social and digital media, how it affects our lives, how Hollywood was trying to use it to keep us engaged with their lives throughout the pandemic and whatnot. And we actually just finished up just a couple minutes ago about it, how the tactics of keeping someone's interest to get the response that the person wants, that's actually promoting the digital media. So branching back on that, Brasco, how does one go about creating a grabbing commercial to get somebody to actually pulled into whatever you're trying to promote?
Well, the problem is that with commercials, they used to be cringe. We used to kind of think, oh God, another commercial. And we didn't take them so overly seriously. They were just kind of goofy and fun. They've sucked it all away. Do you know the only commercials that I can remember that I really do, like, I really kind of enjoy are the insurance ads? When you have to watch those during the NFL games or whatever sports you're watching, whatever it is, Progressive, all the characters, right?
Right.
Flo and Jamie and all this other stuff, right? Then you have the guy that has to always train the people turning into their fathers. I love those commercials. Then you got Liberty Mutual. Then you got Geico. Like all of that is goofy
definitely.
and quirky and fun. And you know what? Those commercials work. But those are $1 million agencies that are putting out a lot of money because those commercials run everywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's a different way of doing it. But for everybody else that wants to advertise now, they're not doing it like that anymore. On the radio, I can listen to the air checks of like different hosts that were on 50s, 60s, 70s into the 80s. Mm-hmm. Everybody had jingles. You used to kind of have sing-along commercials.
Yeah.
All of that. We could talk about Dr. Pepper. We could talk about, when Coke and Pepsi had their own commercials like that too. All of them did. They don't do that anymore either. Like, to make the commercials within 30 seconds, you can find something that entertains. You just can't be just a commercial that just kind of vomits out some words and that's it. You can't do that anymore. It's time to go back to where it was, where commercials can be goofy, because I also think Gen Z wants that kind of content. Look at some of the programs they enjoy. It's a little bit cringy, a little bit goofy, a little bit fun, but it's like, like 80s kids like you and me, we would have enjoyed that kind of stuff. We're getting shows now that kind of get brought back to that too. Cause like you look at Stranger Things, you look at Saved by the Bell when they brought it back, you look at Full House when they brought it back, like just all these things where, you had shows that had a certain thing, but we all watched, we all consumed, we all engaged, and we were retained to it.
Right.
Advertising needs to be the same thing. And when all your social media is out there, it doesn't matter who you have. In some cases, when you have influencers now, you'll find them to go ahead and do a commercial. Like if I go to TikTok and I find a sponsored ad, yeah, there's certain people they found that are influencers that have found their way onto the space, but it's like they don't necessarily resonate. If it's not their own content, you could just tell. But if somebody's out there and is cringy and it's like that goofy kind of feel to it, you get something that makes you remember. But my problem is any commercials that I hear now is because of what somebody says and how they say it, or something that just makes me when I hear a commercial, especially on the radio, oh my God, or just even on a podcast, the same commercials that pop up and the way somebody says it, that's the only thing that makes me think about the commercial. But otherwise, I'm not thinking about what the ad is about.
No, because like you were saying, watching Stranger Things and those shows, you see those little ads and how they did everything. And it's like, it takes me actually back to actually when I was a kid and actually seeing the commercial, especially like the new Coke commercials. We'll do the Coca-Cola ones. It's like, oh, new Coke is so much better. I'm like, yeah, I remember trying new Coke and it was the most horrible, vile thing I've ever drank. But a lot of people get that, and the people that have the spending power, they're not being drawn in like that anymore. It's like now they're trying to get these new younger people, like the Gen Zs, like you're saying, the millennials, to spend their money that they don't have because they're not, of age, and they're still paying their bills and whatnot, and their college tuitions, or they're still in high school. It's like the advertising companies and media forgot about the people now that can actually buy things, and you see it everywhere.
There's also the representation factor. And I'm not going to, say that there's not a need for people to be represented of various, races, cultures, persuasions, whatever. That's fine. But when every ad has to be, well, we need to check the boxes. This person needs to be like this, and this. That's another thing. It's about, you're taking the focus off what the ad's supposed to be and the message is supposed to be, because you're trying to go ahead and fit all these things where, well, we need to be socially conscious. No, just promote the ad. You want to be socially conscious, donate, make that a point in your ad. We're donating towards this cause.
Right.
There you go. But all these other things that are being thought about, it's the eyes off the ball as to what they should be doing to advertise to the public, because we can see that just certain things that you don't want to turn people away from your ads. You don't want to turn people away from your product. And they somehow, some people will take it so far from a political sense, they'll boycott. I'm like, okay, did you understand? You're a corporation, you're a company. You want to do good things. You want to be philanthropic. You want to do things for good. Fine. But when you're doing your advertising, you're trying to promote your product, promote the product. Don't go in this other tangent where we don't understand. At the end of the day, let's know what your product is. Let's put it out there on social media. Remember, short attention span. No one's going to have time to go and pay attention to what you're trying to do. Just what is, who, what, when, where, and why. Give us like, what does it do? Why do I need it? All of that.
Yeah, as long as you can answer those questions and have it done in a very tasteful way, anybody out there can go out and make a commercial or make a YouTube ad or an offer or some sort of content out there to help somebody. A lot of us forget about that because we're not interacting with the people anymore. We're interacting with our cell phones, and our cell phones are one of the worst things ever because it took us out of reality of actually communicating with people. And
Magnus, I got to tell you this. You talked before we got on the air. We talked about one of your guests talking about Airbnbs.
Yeah.
The worst ads in the history of everything. Their placement. Right now, I go to the movie theaters every weekend. Like every time there's a new movie, opening night, Friday night, I'm there. And within the trailers now, and they could be 15 to 25 minutes of trailers for all these different movies. And in the middle of it, Airbnb has slotted a slot for themselves and they're putting a commercial in there. And I can't understand what the whole thing's about. Oh, family. And they have these people into one house. They're not showing vacation. They're not showing anything. Oh, you're just hanging around the house. The ad makes no sense to me in the world. And they had this song for Kermit the Frog playing. Like, what are you doing here? What an ad campaign. Horribly done and managed. And like Airbnbs are very popular. Like, I mean, you want to show me to go there? Okay, you show me the .com at the end of the commercial after 60 seconds. I don't even know what you're doing here, what it's even about. Oh, we got to show these people doing it's like, and that's representation overload, which means we're missing the message altogether.
Yeah, it's like they're not selling. They're not selling it. It's just like a
it's a kumbaya moment.
I like that. I'm going to keep that in my. I like that. I'm going to keep that in my repertoire. I'm going to keep that in my back pocket now.
It doesn't sell. It doesn't sell Airbnbs. I'm sorry, it doesn't.
No, and for the people out there that's trying to make money doing this, you got to remember, you're not doing it for yourself. You're not doing these ads or whatever content for yourself. You're doing it to help solve someone's one problem, to answer questions for them, or a combination of all that that you need to fix. On top of that, you got to make it so they actually want to tune back in. You want them to be engaged, and it's like, okay, well now we're thinking. It's like, okay, now they're thinking in the background. It's like, I can do this, or that might not work, or this might not work. But these commercials, like you're saying, all social media is like 20 seconds of like just like wasted money. They're throwing money away just because they can now.
it's so easy. And honest with social media, you could do things that are so creative to advertise. I can't tell. First of all, on TikTok, I can't tell how many times I've seen this is something I should, that's on Amazon that you can buy. I'm like, somebody just showed it to me. This is like, and Amazon's not even getting, you're not even paying for the advertising. Just somebody showing, oh, look, I can get this boom, or I can get this Scrub Daddy or whatever it is. In my own house, I got Dollar Shave Club. I got razors that I bought from commercials I watched on social media and podcasting. I got a Manscaped because of what I watch on social media and podcasting and various things. Because those, and I think about like the Sasquatch, the soap bars.
Yeah,
those are
goofy
as hell commercials, but they're effective. The problem is I'm not going to buy a $9 bottle bar of soap, but it sounds good.
Honestly, I fell for that and I actually bought them and I love it. The goofy
I'm
commercial,
sure they're great, but
got
take
me.
the price down.
Well, I agree with that. I agree that the price can drop down, but since using them, the bar of soap lasts a little over a month, surprisingly. But you go to the one at the store, it's maybe 2-3 weeks at the most, but over a month, a daily showering. Because yes, I do shower every day. It's very from working out and whatnot. Just gonna throw that out there
before we get on the air.
That's personal, but not too personal because no extra details. But like you said, the commercial that got me was the Brad Pitt one from Dr. Squatch, and it's like, okay, I want to try this just because it made me laugh so much after seeing it dressed as he did in when he was in Troy, that commercial. And yeah. Now you understand which one it is, and somebody else's lights just going like, bink. Yep, I understand. I tried that too, but I would rather buy.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
When we're talking about commercials, crypto.com, because before Airbnb had their ads in the middle of the trailers, it was Matt Damon doing crypto.com.
Yeah.
Did you like that at all?
No, I thought
it made any sense to me at all.
No, I thought he was getting lost in another space movie.
It was.
That's what I thought he was. Was he in cyberspace getting lost with his money?
Nice monologue. What are you talking about?
Yeah, because it
really was.
Because I'm like, I am not paying to see Matt Damon lost in another movie, lost in space again.
And then that's what they have for people to go ahead and jump on board. Okay, but then so look at that part. But now here's the other thing. Then there's a turnaround about the Super Bowl commercial about Coinbase. That was creative. Short attention span. All of a sudden, QR code. I got to jump on that. And I believe they did that on social media as well, right? I mean, they kind of incorporated all that together. It was a gimmick. So take a gimmick, do something goofy, do something fun, sing along, something like that. One of the best examples I'll tell you, and it's like that dystopian kind of nightmare kind of thing, the Demolition Man movie.
Yeah, I remember.
Stallone and Sandra Bullock and all.
Exactly.
Remember when they were in the car? They had the music we listened to was the commercials, all jingles.
The jingle station. I remember that.
And it's funny how Demolition Man actually stands so well to today in some cases. It's just kind of weird. The great movie, by the way. But
very great movie.
It is something like that where advertising needs to go back to that. And plus, because the other problem is there's all these little limitations. Can we be funny? Can we be, a little bit blue? Can we kind of, make jokes? Does it always have to be the fumbling dad that doesn't know what he's doing? Remember, it used to be the woman was the other way, but we understand it changes at times, sure. But they have this thing where like we need to do everything just the same way, and I'm like, well, you're gonna keep doing that. I'm not gonna buy because I'm in your public that will buy, and I have income to buy certain things, but you're not helping,
And one movie, like while we're talking about movies on this, is Minority Report.
Yeah,
one of the best gimmicks movies ever, and it portrayed how the future was going to be, and we are right there right now on everything in that movie.
I'm surprised they never did a sequel. I'm surprised they never did a series on it. I think they probably talked about it, but you know what? It's one of those things where like everybody remembers that movie, and I'm surprised they never went back to that. They went back to the Matrix, probably a little late though.
Well, I kind of liked how they did the Matrix.
The new one, the Resurrection.
Yeah.
But I just felt like Keanu Reeves is a little bit old in the tooth right now, and also I'm just thinking of him as John Wick, and it's just a different thing. Keanu Reeves is actually pretty good for social media. There are certain people on social media that have figured it out,
right?
Or especially on TikTok, they've kind of figured out what they're doing, and others that have kind of found their way to make themselves interesting. Like I think, well, first of all, let me tell you about talking about advertising. Shaquille O'Neal. That
Yes.
guy is a wizard. He's
he
on
is.
everything now. He's got the Papa John stuff. He's got his own franchisee with
Mm-hmm.
him, General, Gold Bond, and then his stuff on
Icy
TikTok's
Hot.
hilarious. Icy Hot. He's got so much. He's on so many different things. But then on top of that, it's like, okay, they've just figured out things. But, there aren't that many pitch people anymore. That's number one. Plus, remember we used to have a lot of infomercials that just had these certain pitch people like, we don't have the guy who was before. We don't have Billy Hayes. God bless his soul. Anthony Sullivan, I got we had him interviewed on Cannabis Radio because his work is being done in CBD now. Ooh, and that guy was great. It takes the stains out, right? It's all that part. And even the infomercials used to be so cringe and so goofy, like of everything, Incredible Inventions. I remember all these shows I used to watch. There were a lot of times I used to watch infomercials in general. All the time life stuff I listened to, and I learned all this music because of them. And it's like, it was great. But there's something about, you can't just be on TV and be goofy and just be like, okay, you're not cool. It's okay not to be cool.
Right.
This generation, we got comic book movies and we got, animated shows that are very popular now. It's because whatever's nerdy, whatever's geek, whatever's cool, that's the new cool thing. It's the cool factor.
Yeah, I
embrace it.
I agree, because going back to those roots, the board game aspect of it, they're making movies out of it. I remember I stumbled across a series on Amazon about that. It's AFK, away from keyboard.
Yeah.
It's based on the Elder Scrolls, based on the whole that platform of a multiplayer RPG game. And I got so enthralled with it because it was done like a movie, but it's only like 40 minutes and it's a series. So I like how they're bringing that out. They're bringing all this old stuff out. I would love to see a reboot of Short Circuit with all the, I am dead serious. If anybody out there wants to reboot a movie with all the mechanicals and CGI and everything now, I would love to see that movie.
I mean, you'd have to change the robot, I guess, at this point. I don't know if Johnny 5 could still be the same. Plus, you know what? But the only thing is, I'm also kind of like worried about, there are some movies that I would just kind of hold. Like, I don't want to ever see Back to the Future redone.
No.
I would never want that to happen. Like, listen, I laugh greatly at Rick and Morty. I appreciate that humor. It is very good. But there's certain movies you can bring back, certain franchises. Like, I like Ghostbusters when they came back, and now they're going to do another one. Great. That was good. When you pay homage, you're going to bring that back to life and try to revive it, of everything like that. Just don't come in there for a cash grab. Like, just, pay attention to the audience you had before and bring up. But this is a generation that there's so much that the younger audience is getting to learn about that we already knew. And, when I look at Top Gun this past weekend, they did the scene where it wasn't a volleyball, but it was more of a rugby thing. It's like they do on the singing in the bar, all that stuff. They incorporated all that into it, right? They do some of the nuances, the callbacks to everything we saw before. Tom Cruise on the bike with a girl, all of that comes back, right? And that's great. But that's what you have to do if you're going to go with older content. But now, these days, if you want to get messages out, you want to get marketing out, you want to get your product to go and do something, go back to what worked.
Right. Go back there. Anybody can go out and research any of these statistics out there. If depending on what you want to do, is like, you'll see, time areas where it worked, what didn't work during this time area. Well, this is what I want to focus on. This is what the product's supposed to do. This is my content. This is my show. How can I do this? It's all out there and it's all at our fingertips, but nobody's using it, or they don't know they can look for it.
Also, when you're taking certain advertisement that's going to be used for video or audio purposes, it's one thing where when you're doing radio, for me, this is what's always the most important thing. And this podcasting is to understand this. Podcasting is radio 2.0, because radio is not going to get any better unless they figure out they need to be serving a different purpose. But for podcasting right now, there's more advertising dollars going into podcasting more than ever. So if you're looking to go ahead and try to get your advertising out there, you put into podcasts. You're gonna have to go to these companies. You're gonna have ad rep firms. They're gonna say, okay, we'll dynamically insert it programmatically into these podcasts. That technology there or in videos, great, but it sound like something that's going to be very entertaining, engaging, informative, and it's going to catch somebody for a little bit, for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Think about what it sounds like with your eyes closed, and then look at what it's going to be.
Well, that brings up a great point that I brought up 2 weeks ago when I had when I had a voiceover actor on. That's also my narrator. It's like you need to hear and feel what you're actually putting out there, because that's what the people are going to see. What it sounds like in your head is not going to be what comes out 9 times out of 10. So
let's go back to movies again. Don LaFontaine, you know, that guy, like in a world where this and that, like that guy, we don't have a guy like that now, but all you needed was him, and he can get you engaged to every movie possible.
Well, this next closest thing we have is Ryan Reynolds. He does that quite well.
And Ryan Reynolds, talk about another guy that is just figured it out. Him, because he's figured out, well, he just has that TikTok thing. Plus, he's just a meme in itself, because people like, the new thing right now is like, if guys like, you're not attracted to guys, what about Ryan Reynolds? And we're like, oh, because every guy is gonna be like, we gotta like this guy. He's he's cool people. And because even with him, it's like he knows he's kind of played a meme for most of his career when it comes to Van Wilder, when it comes to the Deadpool movies. He just has his shtick. Every movie, Hitman's Bodyguard, he has his shtick. It works, and he's been able to like just generate it to whatever he wants. There's not a lot of people like that. Plus, he has his own company, that Mint Mobile he bought. It just works.
Multiple companies on top of that. He has his, I
don't even know what his whole portfolio is, but yeah, he's just doing gangbusters right now.
Yeah, because he's constantly reinventing himself. He's not stale. He's not relying on anything. He's constantly going out and getting things.
Yeah,
it's wonderful to watch someone actually do that. Because I tried his gin, and it's actually, I'm not a gin fan, but it was actually pretty decent. A little bit higher price, but it's the quality's there. So, yeah, there's very few people out there that do that, and Brasco, we talked about so much on this show already, and the time has flown by. I can't believe how fast this time has flown by. That, just talking about social media and digital media, we went back a little bit. We reminisced about some jingles and how it came to be, from radio ads to TV ads to music, and it still captivates me that no one knows what's going to be happening next. And with that being, we have to keep our minds open. And this allows people all around the world now to go out and get a piece of that little pie out there if they want to, and take as much as they want, because as long as you have a cell phone or any way to get onto the internet, you can do this type of work. And it's out there. They have apps. YouTube's out there known for this. TikTok. I'm becoming a better fan of TikTok as well with this. But we have so many new facets out here that were unfathomable back then. So, Brasco, I want to say thank you for everything that, this content is very explosive, entertaining, and we're right to the point. We didn't pull any punches on any of this, because anybody that wants to listen to this content here, to this show, will know what they need to do to get people's attention and get them focused on what they're trying to do in the world. So with that being said, how else can we get a hold of you, get in contact with you? What else what have you been doing, so we can follow some more of this great content?
So first of all, I have 2 full-time commitments. I manage 2 radio networks. One is WMR.FM, which has been around since 2004, all digital programming. So we talk about social media on there, pay-per-click or paid advertising, search, organic search. So everything that Google, Yahoo, or Bing does on a regular basis, we're following along there. And Cannabis Radio says for itself, for anything, if you're an advocate, if you're just you like to use, you like to consume for medical or adult use purposes, everything that's in the business side. I host a show on there called Blunt Business. Pretty well, it does pretty well for when it comes to like engaging the audience. We talked to a lot of power players on that show. On my own side, it's under the King of Podcast brand. I do a wrestling program that's all about all the major wrestling companies, pro wrestling. Wrestling is real. And then there's a broadcasters podcast that's everything about media. It's all commentary, this digital disruption that continues to go along and ferment. And just seeing that difference between the little guy and the big guy, the corporations versus smaller companies, and the content creation that's being done, and the fight for the audience that's out there, and how the internet's changed everything. And then, there's other programming I do, but everything you got to find out about me, kingofpodcasts.com. My whole portfolio is there. All my social media, links to all the websites I work with, and all the programming that I do myself.
Brasco, I can't thank you enough for being on the show with me. It's been a fantastic, conversation we have. And with that, next week is going to be kind of open-minded. So the show next week that we have could be anything. So I'm going to fill that information in a couple, as the time progresses, as it comes to me. But listeners, all my listeners, thank you for tuning in. Brasco, thank you for being on the show. But we have to say goodbye for now.
All right, we're all clear.
Excellent.
Awesome.